Game.
Game.
Game. Game.
Guide.
Votre réseau de
Fansite.
So, let's talk about Grail number 3. Grail number 3 is what we call a life of consequence. And what it really means is that we completely redid the way AI works in our game. But first, before we get to that, as you play this game, you're going to be making decisions. And those decisions will have consequences. What that means is the game is remembering everything you did. And it's reacting. The different NPCs, what quest opportunities are available, all those things are reacting to you based on what you have done. But it also changes what we can do inside the game, and that's where we get to talking about emergent AI. Now, the best and the easiest way for me to describe how that AI works is to run you through an example. So here's a concept piece of something we all know and love, Crushbone. Now, Crushbone's full of orcs. So let's take a look at the way orcs look in our game. That's an orc. Okay, now we all know a lot about orcs. They are what they are. But basically, they really want to get a lot of gold, and they want to do things that are really nasty to us. We know what they don't like is cities. They don't like to be around cities because cities have guards. And guards are just something that will always be bad for orcs. What they do like are lonely stretches of road where the occasional adventurer will walk by with a fat purse, and they can knock them over the head and take everything they own. Now, we know also that they don't like getting their butts kicked. It happens a lot, but they don't like it, okay? So that's the way we set up everything in our game. Now, in a normal MMO, you'd come out here, we would set up a static spawn camp next to that lonely road, and it doesn't matter whether it's launch day or 10 years after launch, you're gonna walk down that road, and there's gonna be that orc spawn camp, and every 15 minutes, they're gonna spit out a new batch of orcs. That's the way these games have worked for a long time. But our game is different. What we do is we tag everything in the world with what it is. The game is constantly polling the world to find out where the guards are. How often people have gone down a lonely stretch of road to find out whether it's lonely or not. And so what we do is we create orcs and then we just release them into the world. And then it's up to the orcs to find the spots that they like. And so when they find that lonely stretch of road where there's no guards, they set up a camp. And they're going to stay in that camp, waylaying the occasional adventurer until one of a couple of things happens. The players might go to a city and alert the guards, and the guards might start patrolling down the road. That would be something the orcs don't like. The adventurers might stop going down the road, in which case there's no gold going back and forth, and the orcs don't like that either. Or the players might kick them around a lot. And they don't like that either. Either way, they're going to uproot stakes and they're going to start wandering around the world trying to find the things that they do like instead of the things they don't like. And when they find that spot, they're going to put down stakes again and start harassing people. Now that allows you, the players, to make absolute change in the world. As we tell you to go out on quests to do things like pacify the woods because there's nasty goblins in them, you can actually do it. You go out into the woods and you harass those goblins and push them back until eventually they don't want to be there anymore and they leave. Now, it might not have the consequences you expected. You might go out there to pacify them and make the woods safe, but what might actually happen is that you tick off the Goblin King and he starts sending war bands to start pushing back at you. So you don't know what's going to be set up, and that's a big part of the game. So as you go through and you try to do things, the world will be reacting to what you've done, and you will be making change. Now that was a lot of talking, so let's see some more action. This is a combat scene where Jelena and Kishar are going to fight against an earth elemental. Players fall down the hole. So, okay, what you just saw is actually reasonably common in our game. There's all kinds of different areas where stuff like that might happen because of destructibility. You see, because We're not just building a surface world this time. We're building a world that has many, many, many tiers of depth to it. And in fact, it looks like this. So what we do is we procedurally create. Go ahead. What we do is we procedurally create all this fantastic content that's all the way through the world. And we know where everything is. We know where all the lost temples are and the ancient cities and all of that stuff. Because we have thousands and thousands and thousands of years of lore and archaeology that the designers have been building over this time. We know where everything is. We have all kinds of lore, and you'll be seeing a lot more of that when you go to the panels. But what that means is, as you explore through all these tiers of depth and stuff in the world, you're going to uncover all these dynamic quest opportunities. And as you explore through them and you choose what you want to do, and remember, the world is destructible, so you don't have to wait for us to reveal it to you. You can just pick up a pick and start making a tunnel. You can just explore through this whole area organically whenever you want to. And as you explore through this and you find these different quest opportunities, occasionally we'll have earthquakes or events in those quest opportunities will collapse caverns and stuff like that, and we'll recreate new areas procedurally. So as you explore through the world, it's constantly changing and you're constantly finding new content. And just as an example of that, let's go back to Kishar and Jelena, whatever her name is, Jelena, and re-get together with them while they're in the center of the world. Now, they couldn't find their way out, so they're just going to basically blow a hole in the crust below, and what they're going to find is a magma chamber. And that's Avoid Goliath. One thing's for sure, you'll always know where a battle was. Okay, so that leads us to Grail number 4. And this is a big one, because what we've had so far is destructibility, which is impermanent change. The world heals back after you destroy it a lot like that. And then there's also emergent AI, which allows you to actually change the world in a local area around you. But most MMOs, most virtual worlds that have ever been created, are generally very static. They never change over time except for the occasional expansion pack, which might change a thing here or there. What we're doing is we're going to embrace a concept that we call permanent change. And the way that we're doing that is through a mechanism that we call rallying calls. And rallying calls are this really cool way to set up a story that takes a long time for players to work through, but constantly and permanently changes the world as you go through it. The easiest way for me to describe that is through an example. So we'll start with what we call the Raising of Halas. So the Combine Accord sends you out here to go out and set up the city of Halas. And of course that starts out as a little tent city. And nobody knows what's in the area, so there's all kinds of little dynamic quest opportunities that appear. Just so you understand what a rallying call is, I think everybody here knows what a public quest is. All right, okay, cool. So with a rallying call, it's kind of like a public quest. It is different, but it's kind of like a public quest where every single person in the game is on that rallying call together at the same time. And it's going to take 2, maybe 3 months of real time for it to be accomplished. But the trick is, you don't know where the stages are. You don't know what events will trigger the story to move forward. And it's different on every server. You'll progress it a lot differently, and we'll show you that as it goes through. So when the Combine Accord tells you to go out here and establish that tent city, Now, you can ignore what they said and just explore out on your own. That's always an option. You can go do anything you want to. But if you want to participate in the rallying call, then you want to go to that tent city and start finding the little ways that you can participate in it. One of the ways that you might be able to do that is by more of a crafting sort of thing, by gathering resources, helping to build a palisade log wall around the city, so on and so forth. You might also get together with your friends and form a group and strike out into the woods to find out what's out there and possibly pacify any dangers that you find. And that's where the fun begins, because you don't exactly know why the next stage might trigger. It might be because you got the log walls up, or it might be because you pacified the goblins in the woods too greatly. Whatever it is, you trigger the next stage of the rallying call, and what might happen then is that the goblins start showing up and burning your outlying villages. Now that creates a whole new set of dynamic quest opportunities. You can help to repair the buildings, you can help to defend them against the goblins, you can try to find out where the goblins are coming from and pacify them out there. In addition, you might, the townspeople might actually create a quarry because they want to build stone walls now that the goblins are burning stuff. So as the villagers dig down into the ground, they're going to uncover some of those tiers of depth I talked to you about, and things might start coming out of the tunnels. So then there's more quest opportunities, defending the quarry workers, exploring those tunnels, etc. Additionally, you might want to help build those stone walls and make that permanent change that I was talking about. Eventually, you're going to erect those stone walls and make a really great keep, or pacify the woods too much, and eventually you're going to really tick off that Goblin King. And he's going to go off and make some allies with the gnolls and the orcs, and they're going to come back with a big siege army. And when that siege army is sitting there, this is what we'd call, this as an example, is the final stage of that rallying call, is the Siege of Halas. Now, there's all kinds of new quest opportunities, of course, stopping the catapults, fighting against the things, defending the walls, perhaps combating against espionage or preventing sappers from undermining your walls, so on and so forth. And then, of course, we have some randomness that comes in because the quarries got abandoned. Now the monsters might be freely coming out and not only messing with you, but also messing with the gnolls and orcs and goblins. So all of those things continue until eventually the players do enough damage to that siege army that they break its back and it retreats. Now that's the end of that rallying call. And what would happen at that point is we would roll out a new rallying call somewhere else in the world. And it's not always somewhere else in the world. It might be here again. We might destroy the city that you just helped build. All kinds of things can be happening on a regular basis. And the really cool thing about this is that after launch, a couple of years down the line, when one of your friends says, hey man, what was it like back at launch? You're going to say, oh my God, Halas didn't even exist back then. That was before the Dragon Army attacked. That was before the Civil War. You know, you'll have all these unique stories. And as the world progresses, it will constantly change. You'll be constantly finding new experiences. And in fact, it's almost impossible to create your same gameplay experiences if you roll up a new alt. Because honestly, not only do you have to make exactly the same decisions to even have a chance at that, because remember, the world's remembering everything that you've done. But the world has changed underneath you. So you're going to need to constantly explore and find out about this world as you move through it. Right? So that's permanent change and emergent AI and of course destructibility, as well as the fact that we changed the core game. And those four elements wrap together into something that we call EverQuest Next. And to be honest, that's enough, but that's not all. I mean, we're really happy where that game is. That's an MMO that every single one of us wants to play. We're really excited about it. We're we're jazzed to bring it to you. But there's something else that came along the way. Because when we started building all of this, well, before I get to that, let me show you one last scene of carnage. Because carnage is always fun. Sometimes the monsters can get big. Let's see what that Karen's running away from. That's the Iron Golem. We'll just hope Kishar was hiding in the basement. So anyway, like I said, we're really excited about that game. But as we built it, we had to build all kinds of special tools that allowed us to make something special. And by the way, that's Fioriona in the game.